Hey, Diane, for it.
Did you ever figure out how to use your stationaries?
You're probably on down so far. I just have a bit of it just.
You ready, Dr. Moosh?
Yeah.
No, when you use 6.4, so right, huh? Takes a little bit of catching.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was essentially out from like August 7th. All day.
That's a lot.
Real quick and easy. Go to the kitchen shop. They have a whole kit. I think it's
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion to approve the open session minutes from April 30th?
Motion to approve the open session minutes from April 30th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion to approve the executive session minutes from April 30th, 2019? Motion to approve executive session minutes, April 30th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It looks like Maria's not with us again tonight.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
Are there any community comments? Thank you. We'll move on to the superintendent's comments.
Okay, thank you. First off, as you have on your agenda, just as a note of today, today at the State House was the official ceremony for the Green Ribbon Award. As I mentioned during our last meeting, both us and Arlington were recognized as state award winners of the U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Award for the work that we've done in reducing our carbon footprint as a district, but also in environmental sustainability education for our students. So I put this out on social media, but it was really a really nice ceremony. We had two secretaries, the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, this gentleman, Matt Beaton, and then the Secretary of Education, Matt Pizer, was present, and then also our brand new Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education, Jeff Riley, presented us the award. So a small team of us went out and received the reward. It was just a terrific day and a very nice ceremony. So I actually have the certificate right here, and then we also got 3 citations from our reps and senators as well. I just forwarded to you, I literally got an email a half hour ago. We also have national recognition. So our application was forwarded to the U.S. Department of Education, and we just received word that we're one of probably around 20 recipients nationwide. So as the email says, the award ceremony will be in Washington, D.C. on September 19th. We can bring up to 5 people to represent the district. So please, if you're interested in taking the trip, let us know, and you can represent our district as well. Okay, so very exciting. Second piece on the agenda is per Mass General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12B, and our school committee policy. I just want to do a public announcement of the openings that our principals are indicating right now for school choice. based upon our current enrollment and what we have enrolled for kindergarten. So right now at Clough, and I'll do it by school and grade level. In kindergarten at Clough, we have 6 openings in traditional kindergarten and 5 in the Spanish immersion program, and no other openings at any other grades. At Memorial, the only openings that we have are for Spanish immersion, and there's 5 and no other openings. Misco Hill is pretty much tapped out as far as its projected enrollment is supposed to be stable, right around 800, so there are no openings. And here at Nipmuc, we're projecting 6 in grade 9, 2 in grade 10, 2 in grade 11, and none for grade 12. Per our policy, and as we do every year, things usually shift a little during the summer. And what we will do is if there are any additional openings, what we do is during that first meeting in August, we announce what they are. Any questions on that? It's an update on the FY 2019 budget process. Right now, we're in the midst of the Senate budget, and because last Wednesday, the Senate Ways and Means Committee released their budget. And it's kind of, just like the House budget process, it's really their first pass of the budget. And right now we are in the amendment process. So kind of interesting, if you are to go to the state budget page, there's actually a tab for amendments. And right now, as of today, there are a grand total of, as you can see me paging and paging and paging and paging, a grand total of 1196, so almost 1,200 amendments to the Senate Ways and Means budget. So everybody is advocating. As I say in the background notes, it's very unfortunate because in the Senate Ways and Means budget, we actually lost money versus the final House approved. And the place where we lost money was in regional transportation reimbursement. It actually, the final House budget had it at 63.5 million. They reversed it back to 62.5 million, so they reduced it by $1 million. I will email you these details, but I plan on asking you to reach out to our senators, Senator Moore and Senator Fatman, and I'm also going to put something on social media to our parents asking to reach out because there's 2 amendments. One is Amendment 161 by Senator Tarr, and what that calls for is full reimbursement. So the text is right here. It's probably a little difficult to see. But right now, none of our 2 senators are co-sponsors to this, but they're asking to put in for regional transportation a little more than $86 million. That $86 million would represent full 100% reimbursement. A second amendment is amendment number 242, and that is by Senator Goby. And as you can see, it's also not co-sponsored yet. That would increase the regional school transportation reimbursement from 62.5 to 73.1. That 73.1 represents approximately an 85% reimbursement. That perhaps has a better chance of passing the full Senate than the first one, but I think advocating for both and asking both of our senators to co-sponsor both something that I think is very realistic.
What was the number of the first one again?
The number of the first one is the full reimbursement, a little bit more than 86 million.
That which number of amendment?
That's amendment number 161. And then the second one is amendment number 242, and that's 73.1 million. Realize getting up to that 80 85% would represent at a minimum at least $100,000 more state funding for the district. So it's significant. So like I said, I will put something in email to all of you, and I will also put something on social media to our parents. Okay. And again, Chapter 70, unfortunately, they are funding at the same rate as the House, which is a mere $30 additional per pupil. And then last but not least, our FY18 budget update. You have in your packet the most current year-to-date expenditure report. Jay, are there any lines that you wish to focus or highlight upon?
Not a whole lot has changed since we talked at the last meeting that I was at about the various issues we have. The only thing that's come up in the last 2 weeks is the air conditioning unit here at Nipmuc that air conditions the auditorium. Those of you that were at the Upton Town meeting know how comfortable it was, because the air conditioning unit no longer works. So we're in the process of trying to get some pricing on that, but it looks like it's going to run anywhere in the vicinity of between $30,000 and $75,000. So that's the kind of stuff we deal with on a regular basis with building maintenance, which is why it's such a variable thing. But other than that, cheery note, things are relatively stable. I think we're safe with the snow removal stuff at this point.
It's very bold to had to throw that in there, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm going out on a limb here, but that's it.
Move on to administrators' comments.
I've asked Dave Quinn to come here today to talk about something that really he was very instrumental in doing for the very first time. And it was last Thursday, our district, and this is actually in our district action plans, hosted something known as the Inspired Learning Convention, which really was a day to focus on modern learning and modern learning practices. And we had, what, over 80 practitioners
You beat me to my slides.
So take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair, rest of the honorable body. Very glad to be here with you this evening to talk about the Inspired Learning Convention. And while I appreciate the kind words from Dr. Marushek, this is really a team effort. This is an offshoot of a passion project that Mr. Clement started to try to bring modern learner examples of modern learning out to the community. Dr. Cohen and Associate Principal Moran are also heavily involved in this project. So like anything else in this district, it's always a team effort. So what we saw, or the intent behind this, is that within our school community and across many communities, the why of why school needs to change is pretty clear. The big challenge is the how. And the goal for the Inspired Learning Convention, I don't know if, when you go to conferences, you leave and you see these really great sessions and you walk away and I have no idea how I'm about to do this, right? So what we wanted to do is we wanted to focus on the how. We wanted sessions that would address, all right, yeah, modern learning's great, but what is this going to look like in different contexts? So we built a convention all around having conversations about this. And so we got the 80-20 principle in play. We had about 80 people from over 20 different districts or organizations come to this convention during a school day. And it was amazing, the flow, no interruption with the school day, but people were really able to see some of the cool things going on in Nipmuc. So we hit, I think, a pretty significant number for what we had hoped. We had actually sold out. We had about a 14-person waiting list at the end. So next year, if we can figure out the logistics, we'd like to expand it. But there's definitely this yearning for the how to move from the why to the how. So our Inspired Learning Convention had 3 main segments. Our opening was the keynote from Beth Holland, who works for EdTech Teacher. She is also a writer for EdWeek. I don't know if you've seen her blog, but Nipmuc in this project was featured in EdWeek on that blog numerous times over the last couple of weeks in the lead up to this keynote. I put a link to her keynote. The big idea is that every rebellion begins with a band of rebels, and what we need to do is form a community of educators dedicated to changing practice. There's a link to kind of a condensed version of her keynote. Happy to share it with the committee if you're interested in it. It was really wonderful. A good way to connect people. A lot of laughs at the beginning, and it really framed the day nicely. On the book end, we had MIT and their teaching systems lab. YJ Kim and Louisa Rosenheck came in to do a session on something called meta-rubric, which tries to find ways to assess modern learning, getting away from the typical, do you have 3 sources? Do you have all your periods? And getting to what does quality look like? And teachers are put into teams to discuss. They all create a movie poster of a movie they've all seen. And they really do a deep dive on what makes a quality movie poster. And then start to extrapolate that out to, all right, so what defines quality work? What are you really trying to get at your project? Are you trying to pick at that low-hanging fruit that's really easy to be measurable? Or are you really trying to define what it is you want for your students to be able to do and what that looks like in practice? So we had a 2-hour session with the MIT Teaching Systems Lab. They're very interested in partnering with us going forward. So it's a nice relationship, a nice way to share their work, but also to cultivate new opportunities for us in the future. And then the heart of this really is our roundtable sessions, where we brought teachers together to talk about practice. And there's a link in the slideshow to all of the preview. We use the app Flipgrid, where teachers from around the state, we even had some coming as far as Scarsdale, New York, coming to share the different innovative practices that they're doing in their classroom. Chris Cassell talks about ditching the trifold brochure and trying to do movies, PSAs, blog posts showing and demonstrating learning. Adam B is from Mass Academy. He does works on a lot of STEM and reaches out to the community for people who are needs or have developmental or physical challenges, and their students to try to design STEM-related assistive tools. And next Tuesday, I'll be going to take a look at some of the work that they've been doing. Again, we're trying to bridge the relationship gap. What really made me proud is, you've got folks like Mrs. Gentili. About a quarter of the roundtable presenters were right in from district. So we're not only, sharing our work with modern learning, but we're also providing opportunities for other people across the state to come in and share what they're doing as well. So how'd it go? You can see from some of the tweets that people were really satisfied. Had a great day at the Inspired Learning Convention. Had a great day. Paul Riero was very kind. George Edwards from NIAS left the day feeling inspired. And the feedback was really, really positive. Of all the people surveyed, only one person thought it was just okay. Everybody else had a really fantastic day. But we'll take their feedback in terms of trying to improve it to make it better for next year. I don't know if we have any West Wing fans, but we've got the Inspired Learning Convention done. So what's next? So tomorrow is Clean Energy Activities Day, like I was telling you about a couple months ago. We're about to kick that off. Hopefully the weather holds out. But we've got a great slate of activities planned. We've got a interview panel with clean energy experts starting at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then on the Carrot Top, I brought some props. Students will be either putting together a wind turbine kit or a solar panel kit. The turbine can power an LED light. The solar panels can also power lights, but also do a water pump. So it's a lot of hands-on learning to try to create energy through renewable sources, just like as the Green Energy School. And then to close out the day, or depending on weather, parallel, we've got a new endeavor going on in the garden. Let's see if we can get this to play here. I don't know.
That would make too much sense.
Yeah. Let's see if I have the video. Yep. So as you can see, our turbine is now up. We've recently set up the solar panels. The panels are feeding into our inverter system. You can see we're grabbing quite a bit right now. It's really cooking. And then you see this plug runs all the way into our rain barrel. We get the pump running. Solar panels are feeding into the pump. Take this line over here. Then ultimately, here's this rain bucket over here. So just a sneak preview of what's coming up. So, and that rain bucket will provide irrigation system to Mrs. Rapose's garden, who she's working with her students to sketch out the layout. The plants just went in today. So her students will be working with a group of other 7th grade students to lay out the simple irrigation system that will be controlled by a Raspberry Pi mini computer, all powered by clean energy. So we're really trying to practice what we preach here, not just in terms of the infrastructure, but also creating learning opportunities so students can see themselves as potential green energy pioneers. So I appreciate the support that I've received from the district. I also really want to mention, Britt Kaler and Jen Parham have been instrumental in making this grant possible, planning all the logistics. Jay, who always finds a way to get what I need within budget. And then Ken Shawnee, who has just been, I call him Can Do Ken because there hasn't been an issue that I've run into that he can't solve. We really have a culture of yes from the top on down, and that's why we're able to do what we're able to do here. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
I have a quick question,
Sure.
Dave. So for the building of the wind turbine
Yes.
and the solar panels,
Yes.
how do students fit that into their day?
So this is a day dedicated just to this event. The nice thing about it is while this is an event almost like you've got the 5th grade wax museum, you've got the parade of countries, you've got the engineering fair. This is another endeavor just like that. We fit it in, in between the MCAS schedule, but it's all dedicated to green energy. The other nice piece about this is, as we talked about, is the sustainability, right? So we're focusing on the 7th graders for these kits, but these kits are reusable. So we could bring these down to the elementary. We're thinking about, collecting student feedback about the experience. So if we wanted to run a 7th grade clean energy activities day in 2019, we could, or maybe we move to someplace else. So we're still trying to find out a fit, but we're just really grateful to the Mass Clean Energy Center for making this grant possible, making what you see in the courtyard possible, so we can figure out where our next moves are.
Great, that's awesome.
Thank you very much for your time.
So you said in the Inspired Learning session, the MIT guys came in and did a game-based workshop. What
Yeah.
was that about?
Yeah, so what it is that you get into groups to 3 to 5. And the game is to design the best movie poster that you can with limited resources. And you all select a movie that you've all seen so that there's some sort of level playing ground. And then you walk through this process of, all right, so what are your criteria? What makes a good movie poster? Everybody comes up with that individually, and then you pool it together. And what's really interesting is the discussions about what people's different perceptions are. Do the characters have to be on the movie poster in order for it to be quality? Does there have to be text? And what they really start to understand as they're going through the discussions, we're really talking about student work. What makes a quality project, right? And then do our rubrics reflect what we really want out of those end products? Or again, like I said earlier, what we can easily measure and what's kind of great. And it's fascinating to hear the discussions between teachers as they debate intensely, but with passion about what they believe makes something quality. There was one about spelling. If the title's misspelled, is anybody going to want to see this movie, or whose role is it about spelling? And I think a lot of things is that one of the big realizations that you hear from a lot of groups is that how do we bring students into that conversation about quality? And how do we together, with my expertise as an educator, the student perspective, now having ownership, pull this into a rubric that everybody understands and that everybody values. And I think those types of conversations are just really, for me, as kind of like an education nerd, fantastic to hear. And having gone through it myself at another conference, it was good to see that they had the same experience I did. Really cool.
That's exciting for the district. Thank you. On to subcommittee updates. The policy subcommittee, the second read and approval of the revised policy JLDC administering medication to students. We have a motion.
Motion to approve the JLDCD administering medications to students policy.
Second.
And also include the accompanying one, student self-administration.
Okay, and including the accompanying policy on student self-administration of medications.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Does not appear to be any old business, so we'll move on to new business.
Okay, you have in your packet, and then I also shared with you a copy of our most current audit report, which is the FY17 unqualified report of the district's finances. And as we do every year, we have Tim Craven from Craven and Associates, who is our CPA who conducts this. So Tim, maybe if you could come up and just kind of give an overview of the audit
Can I
report,
stand out here because I want to.
wherever you're most
I want
comfortable.
to share, yeah. After that wonderful presentation, I feel a little bit like the first grader who forgot his thing for a show and tell.
It's point of
You
cap.
still do show and tell, right? A long time
This
since
is
I dealt with the
inspired,
first
this isn't inspired learning, this is inspired finance.
grade. Well, you are inspired financially because you're in very good shape. As the superintendent had indicated, it's a unqualified report, which doesn't mean that you're not qualified. It just means that it's a standard report with no deviations from what one would expect in the financial statements. In addition to the audit opinions on the financial statements, there is a report on internal control over the financial reporting and compliance with applicable laws and regulations, which is the second report. The third report is on compliance with respect to main federal programs. Once again, they're all boilerplate, standard, no deviations from what would be the best report that you can have. And getting to the financial statements, questions? Getting to the financial statements, we start turning page 9. That's a district-wide statement of net assets. And district-wide, and this page 10 is district-wide statement of activities. That's under generally accepted accounting standards. Quite frankly, I don't believe it means a lot to the people that are managing the business of the school district. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But like I say, fixed assets and depreciation, you're required to record them, have them on the financial statements, but you don't make decisions based on those assets. They're generally not accessible by a creditor. So, but again, you have to do it in accordance with what general accepted accounting principles are for government entities. And that's what it is. Go to page 11. This is where it starts to become fairly important. It's the district-wide. It's the balance sheet on the governmental funds. Those are the funds that you operate under. Generally, in the old days, there was two. There was the general fund and the special revenue fund. Now it's broken up into different funds or sub-funds. But essentially, it's still the same idea. You have your governmental, your general fund, which is the main operating account, main operating set of accounts for the operation of the district. And then you have other special funds, which are broken out in accordance with what the rules are for determining what a discretely presented fund has to be, which is over certain percentage limitations. That's why you have the circuit breaker as a separate fund, school choices a separate fund, and the other funds might be 40 different funds that make those numbers. That's page 11. Page 12 just reconciles governmental funds to the district-wide. On page 13, that shows you the activities of governmental funds, revenues and expenses. Shows you that in the general fund, using what would be MAS, state accounting system, you had an increase in your fund balance of 19,000 in the general fund. If you take a look across, I think where it says that change in fund balance, that shows once you get beyond the general fund, 2 columns, circuit breaker, school choice, that kind of indicates what happened in appropriations from one year to the next. You got $36,000 less in 2017 than you got in 2016, and you got 405 more in 17 and in 16. Any questions? Page 15 is the budget and actual statement. Once again, it shows that if you look down at the other financing sources, it shows that you had appropriated $245,000, or you used other funds available to balance your budget of $245,000, and you ended up not needing them because your revenues were $305 more, your expenditures were $40,000 more than what you had, so it ended up to $264. Okay, that's in the general. Pages 16, 17, and 18 relate to activities of the school cafeteria. It's considered a business activity where the revenues are supposed to match your expenses, which is not the way you calculate your operating budget. Shows that you had an increase in net assets in the proprietary fund, the school lunch program, of $8,500 on page 17. If you look at the bottom. Once again, that's not calculated the way you would calculate it in looking at it from a government fund perspective, because these are using different accounting rules than what you use in Fund 2021. What's the school lunch fund 21? 20? School lunch. 2010. So if you have any questions, in this one, you actually take into account the change in compensated absences from one year to the next, run it through the P&L, which you don't do in the governmental funds. It's different in this type of. Page 19 and 20 reflect you have two trust funds, the Hall and the Clough funds, trust funds, which are private purpose trust funds. Private purpose meaning that they go for individuals, not the general operations of the district. Then the agency funds are the school, the student activity accounts. Aside from that, the footnotes on the footnotes, they're similar from one year, pretty much similar from one year to the next. We change the numbers where they're required to change. The biggest piece that I would have you look at is on page 30. That's the calculation of the other post-employment benefits, pension and health insurance liabilities on a long-term basis, and it shows that you have a OPEB obligation, or other post-employment benefits, OPEB, of $15,296,000, and none of that is funded. But that doesn't make you any different than anybody else. Nobody is funded. And I knew there was one town that did a special stabilization fund for this. They put $1 in it back about 5 years ago, and I haven't heard them put any more money in, so it's not something that you would want, because you pay for it out of annual appropriations. Any questions? I don't really have anything more to add. As I said before, you have my numbers. If you have any questions, always feel free to call me. Call me, I don't charge. So always feel free to call me with any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Do you have any correspondence?
No, we do not.
Other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting? None? Okay, future agenda items would be the school committee reorganization on June 4th and the Golden Apple Award presentation on June 18th.
Okay, I have one item, and I'm totally violating open meeting law here. I'll admit it on camera, because it's not on the agenda, but as you know, this is Tana's last meeting as a member of the Mendon-Upton Regional School Committee. So on behalf of the committee and the entire district, I'd like to give you this as a fond gift for everything that you've brought to the table over the last 3 years. I personally and professionally appreciate all your support, all your wisdom, and what you brought to this committee. And I think in your 3 years, and because of your role, the district has gotten better and stronger. So I thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be part of such an amazing group. The district is in great hands, and I can't wait to see where you go, because I know it's going to be nowhere but up. It's a great district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tana.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7:40.
Well, you're one of those town clerk types.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no one looking directly at me like.
Guilty mind.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.